Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together. Shaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Ashtapraishva Bhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, for regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam, and by rendering some service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. The loving service unto the personality of Godhead is praised with transcendental songs, established irrevocable. Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to today's class. Before we pull up today's verse, does anybody remember anything from yesterday's class or where we are at this point?
Yesterday's clash was the big fight between Vidura and Hiranyaksha.
Varaha and Hiranyaksha.
Who's Vidura?
And the fight is still going on. He is not yet slain. As we heard from Jonathan, that Varaha is going to be successful. So that's a spoiler alert. Okay. And what else happened? Does anybody remember what else happened after that?
Brahma came and said, Varaha like scared.
Yes. Could that?
Starting with him.
Yeah, so that's correct. That's where we left off yesterday. Brahma had come and he had prayed. Yes, Jonathan.
Another detail is that Narada, when he had told Hiram Rasha their fine should fight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's where we're leaving off. If you want to pull up chapter 19, we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to go around and read verse 1 to 30, but I'm probably going to stop in the middle and make some comments, so please be prepared for that. Start with text number 1.
Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the words of Brahma, the Creator, which were free from all sinful purposes and as sweet as nectar, the Lord heartily laughed and accepted his prayer with a glance laden with love.
I'm going to pause here real quick. Can anybody guess why the Lord was laughing? Is the jokes of Brahma funny? Yes.
Because Brahma was scared that, if the fight carries on too long, what could happen? There was some doubt in Brahma or some anxiety, even though Varaha is the supreme personality of Godhead, and there's no way that he could lose. Brahma still felt anxiety on the prolonging of the fight by Varahadev.
Okay. Kunti?
I don't know, this is just a guess, but because the Lord is kind of playing, he's kind of playing with the, what's his name? Hiranyaksha. He's kind of playing with him, and it's like he's being called out by Brahma. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. So these are some nice points. In the purport, Prabhupada says he laughs because it says Brahma's prayers were free from all sinful purposes. So Krishna is actually happy with Brahma's prayers. Previously in Jonathan's class, we heard about Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and they had also prayed, but their prayers were with sinful purposes. So they also they didn't approach Krishna, they approached Brahma. And it's not that demons, they don't pray, they don't approach the authority. In this case, they approach the authority, but their purposes are sinful. So in this case, Brahma was actually praying for the benefit of the universe. He wanted the living entities to be peaceful. And so Krishna is very happy with that. And he's a person, certain desires that people come to him, he may fulfill, this or that, whatever a person wants. But there's certain things, if somebody comes to him and asks him, it makes him very happy. Like a parent, if there's a child and the child is like, I want this, I want that. Okay, sure, I'll get you that. But then if somebody comes and the child is, says something to the parents, for example, for another kid, like, oh, can you get this for my sister? Or they pray for, just like they just want to be with their parents. Those things can make the parent a lot more happier. So in this case, Krishna is very happy with Brahma. So he's laughing heartily. So we can continue on next verse.
The Lord, who had appeared from the nostril of Brahma, sprang and aimed his mace at the chin of his enemy, the Hiranyaksha demon, who was stalking fearlessly before him.
Struck by the demon's mace, however, the Lord's mace slipped from his hand and looked splendid as it fell down whirling. This was miraculous, for the mace was blazing wonderfully.
Even though the demon had an excellent opportunity to strike his unarmed foe without obstruction, he respected the law of single combat, thereby kindling the fury of the Supreme Lord.
So I'd like to pause here. It says he respected the law of single combat. So in those times, even the demons, they followed certain rules and regulations. And it's not that they were cheating and lying. They even offered in charity, like we heard in class by Kalakanta on Monday, that a demon's mentality is, oh, I'll give in charity and thus I'll rejoice. So that giving in charity, following the rules and regulations, that doesn't necessarily make somebody a demon or devotee. Because here Hiranaksha is also following the rules. He could have taken undue advantage and just, stricken the Lord, but he didn't do that. He was respecting the laws of single combat, like it said. So that's really interesting, because I think now in today's society, maybe that's not even a thing, but in the past, even the demons and people of the opposite party, they would respect such laws. We can continue.
Even though the demon had an excellent opportunity, as the Lord's mace fell to the ground and a cry of alarm arose from the witnessing crowd of gods and rishis, the personality of Godhead acknowledged the demon's love of righteousness and therefore invoked his Sudarshana discus.
Okay. I'll also pause here. It says, when the Lord's mace fell, a cry of alarm arose from the witnessing crowd of gods and rishis. So it's not just it was not just a fight in isolation. There was a lot of people, all of the universe was watching. Sometimes, we have football matches at UF and there's a huge crowd, but this is like the fight of the universe. There's the rishis, the demigods, everyone's watching, and they're not just watching, they're captivated, watching this fight. They know that their hands, their lives are in God's hands. And so, yeah, this whole fight didn't have to happen, but Krishna had that desire. He wanted to fight, like we heard. And so there was this fight. And when he fights, it's not just some small fight. The whole universe comes to watch him fight. So that's very interesting to just imagining being one of these people watching this huge fight with Varaha and Naksha. Okay, let's continue.
As the discus began to revolve in the Lord's hands, and the Lord contended at close quarters with the chief of his Vaikuntha attendants, who had been born as Hiranyaksha, a vile son of Diti, there issued from every direction strange expressions uttered by those who were witnessing from airplanes. They had no knowledge of the Lord's reality, and they cried, "May victory attend you! Pray dispatch him! Play no more with him!"
Next person.
When the demon saw the personality of Godhead, who had eyes just like lotus petals, standing in position before him, armed with his sudarsas, disgust, his senses were overpowered by indignation. He began to hiss like a serpent, and he bit his lip in great resentment.
The demon who had fearful tusks stared at the personality of Godhead as though to burn him. Springing into the air, he aimed his mace at the Lord, exclaiming at the same time, "You are slain."
O saintly Vidura, while his enemy looked on, the Lord in his boar form, the enjoyer of all sacrificial offerings, playfully knocked down the mace with his left foot, even as it came upon him with the force of a tempest.
The Lord then said, "Take up your weapon and try again, eager as you are to conquer me." Challenged in these words, the demon aimed his mace at the Lord and once more loudly roared.
When the Lord saw the mace flying towards him, he stood firmly where he was and caught it with the same ease as Garuda, the king of birds, would seize a serpent.
His valor was thus frustrated. The great demon felt humiliated and was put out of countenance. He was reluctant to take back the mace when it was offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
He now took a trident which was as rapacious as a flaming fire and hurled it against the Lord, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, even as one would use penance for a malevolent purpose against a holy Brahmana.
Hurried by the mighty demon with all his strength, the flying trident shone brightly in the sky. The personality of Godhead, however, tore it to pieces with his discus Shudarshan, which had a sharp-edged rim, even as Indra cut off the wing of Garuda.
Is anybody curious about that story?
Yeah.
Somebody knows? Okay, I'll read what Prabhupada says, and then you can hear the story. So once upon a time, Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, snatched away a nectar pot from the hands of the demigods in heaven in order to liberate his mother, Vinata, from the clutches of his stepmother, Kadru, the mother of the serpents. On learning of this, Indra, the king of heaven, hurled his thunderbolt against Garuda. With a view to respect the infallibility of Indra's weapon, Garuda, though otherwise invincible, being the Lord's own mount, dropped one of his wings, which was shattered to pieces by the thunderbolt. So that's the story that is being referred to. Okay, let's continue. Verse 15.
The demon was in fire head. He therefore advanced toward the Lord, and, roaring aloud, struck his hard fist against the Lord's broad chest, which bore the mark of Srivatsa. Then he went out of sight.
Does anybody know what the Shivasa is?
It's basically a symbol of the goddess fortune.
It's mark on his chest.
Yeah. And here Prabhupada says it's a curl of white hair on the chest of the Lord, which is a special sign of his being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because in Vaikuntha, they all look like him, but then Srivasta, the little mark on his chest, distinguishes him from the rest. Next verse.
Hit in this manner by the demon, O Vidura, the Lord who had appeared as the first boar did not feel the least quaking in any part of his body, any more than an elephant would when struck with a wreath of flowers. Okay, so here, this thing is as if an elephant would have been struck with a wreath of flowers. So the Lord didn't really feel any pain. And in fact, it was seen as an offering. So when we go in front of Krishna and we offer him flowers, this is how Krishna was perceiving Hiranaksha hitting him. So he knew that this is his eternal servitor and this is just a fight for fun. And so when he was hitting him, he was actually enjoying it. He was having fun. It was very sweet. Okay, let's go. Verse 17.
The demon, however, employed many conjuring tricks against the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of Yogamaya. At the sight of this, the people were filled with alarm and thought that the dissolution of the universe was near.
So here, now that people are starting to get afraid, terrified, fearful, because how can the Supreme Lord be tricked? If there's a slight wavering of even his finger, when he was lifting up the Govardhan hill and he would sometimes little wavering, everybody would start to get afraid because they would think, oh, like what is going to happen now? The Supreme Lord is faltering, he's shaking a little bit. So even if there's like a little mishap, with the Supreme Lord, everybody starts to become afraid. So in this case, there is some fear now going forward. Okay, let's continue.
Fierce winds began to blow from all directions, spreading darkness occasioned by dust and hailstorms. Stones came in volleys from every corner, as if thrown by machine guns.
The luminaries, in outer space disappeared due to the skies being overcast with masses of clouds which were accompanied by lightning and thunder. The sky rained pus hair, and stool, urine, and bones.
O sinless Vidura, mountains discharged weapons of various kinds, and naked demonesses armed with tridents appeared with their hair hanging loose.
Cruel and savage slogans were uttered by hosts of ruffian yakshas and rakshasas, who all either marched on foot or rode on horses, elephants, or chariots.
The personal enjoyer of all sacrifices now discharged his beloved Sudarshan, which was capable of dispersing the magical forces displayed by the demon.
At that very moment, a shudder suddenly ran through the heart of Diti, the mother of Hiranyaksha. She recalled the words of her husband, Kashyapa, and blood flowed from her breast.
Does anybody remember what words she's referring to that her husband spoke? Yes, John.
Was he the one that had informed her that her sons would be liberated, killed by the Lord, but then she'd have a Mahabhagavat grandson?
Yeah. So that's exactly right. So she was remembering that. So at this time, she's feeling, okay, now this is the time. He's going to leave his body, he's not liberated. So there's still some fear there. That's why blood is flowing.
When When the demon saw his magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of Godhead. Keshava, and full of rage, tried to embrace him within his arms to crush him, but to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms.
The demon now begun to strike the Lord with his hard fists, but Lord Adhoksaja slapped him in the root of the ear, even as Indra, the lord of the Maruts, hit the demon Vritra.
Though struck indifferently by the Lord, the conqueror of all, the demon's body began to wheel. His eyeballs bulged out of their sockets. His arms and legs broken and the hair on his head scattered, he fell down dead, like a gigantic tree uprooted by the wind.
Aja Brahma and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tossed demon lying on the ground, biting his lip. The glow of his face was yet unfaded, and Brahmana admiringly said, "Oh, you could meet such a blessed death."
So his body was still glowing, and that's because Krishna had touched him.
Yeah.
So he's still glowing. Do you have a point? Okay, so let's continue. 3 more verses.
Yes, I can read. Okay. Brahma continued. He was struck by a forefoot of the Lord, whom yogis, seeking freedom from their unreal material bodies, meditate upon in seclusion in mystic trance. While gazing on his countenance, this crest jewel of Diti's sons has cast off his mortal coil.
The personal assistants of the Supreme Lord, having been cursed, have been destined to take birth in demonic families. After a few such births, they will return to their own positions.
The demigods addressed the Lord, "All obeisance is unto you. You are the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and you have assumed the form of a boar in pure goodness for the purpose of maintaining the world. Fortunately for us, this demon, who was a torment to the worlds, has been slain by you, and we too, O Lord, are now at ease in devotion to your lotus feet."
So the demigods are happy now, and so they're thanking Krishna, and they're saying, "Thank you, O Lord. We are at peace." And here it says that he assumed the form of the boar in pure goodness, basically saying Krishna's form, no matter what he takes, whether it's a boar form, a fish form, a lion form, it is always transcendental. It's not within the modes, it's not within this world. Generally, we think of boars and pigs to be in the mode of ignorance, but no matter what form the Lord takes, he's always transcendental. So they realized that, and they were praying to him, we're thanking him. That's the last verse we have for today, and the verse we're going to cover is actually verse 24. If you could pull that up. Okay. Vinastasu samayasu Uyasha Vijay Keshavam Sapaguhamanamam Sevasihitam Bahi. Anybody else want to chant? Bhuyasharvacha Keshavam Musopaguhamanoma Sarveshevasitam Bahi Vinastasu Samayasu Bhuyasharvacha Keshavam Let's do it together. Vinastashu, Mahispel, Ramayashu, magic forces, Bhuya, again, Shra, and Anusha, after coming into the present, Keshavam, the Supreme Personality of God, Rusha, full of rage, Mana, racing, the Lord, Thursday, Swa, Avasita, standing, Bahi, outside. Okay, translation also together. When the demon saw his magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of God of creation, and full of rage, tried to embrace him within his arms to crush him. But to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. Okay, can somebody read the purport? Yes, sirs.
In this verse, the Lord is addressed as Keshava because he killed the demon Keshi in the beginning of creation. Keshava is also a name of Krishna. Krishna is the origin of all incarnations, and it is confirmed in Brahma Samhita that Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, exists simultaneously in his different incarnations and expansions. The demon's attempt to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead is significant. The demon wanted to embrace him with his arms, thinking that with his limited arms he could capture the Absolute by material power. He did not know that God is the greatest of the great and the smallest of the small. No one can capture the Supreme Lord or bring him under his control. But the demoniac person always attempts to measure the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. By his inconceivable potency, the Lord can become the universal form, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, and at the same time he can remain within the box of his devotees as their worshipful deity. There are many devotees who keep a statue of the Lord in a small box and carry it with them everywhere. Every morning they worship the Lord in the box. The Supreme Lord, Keshava, or the personality of Godhead Krishna, is not bound by any measurement of our calculation. He can remain with his devotee in any suitable form, yet he is unapproachable by any amount of demoniac activities.
Thank you. The topic that I was assigned is that Krishna can only be captured by his devotees. And here we see Hiranyaksha is trying to capture the Lord, but he's astonished that he cannot capture the Lord. And Prabhupada says here in the last sentence, he can remain with his devotee in any suitable form, yet is unapproachable by any amount of demoniac activities. So Krishna is actually known as Ajita, which means unconquerable. He can't be conquered by anyone. No one can control him. No one can conquer him. Yet, if a devotee sincerely loves him and tries to serve him, he becomes theirs. He becomes captured. And here Prabhupada is giving the example of when he comes in the deity form. He stays with the devotee in a small little box. He's captured in that small little space. But Hiranyaksha, with so much power and so much opulence, and he had all these mystic powers, yet he couldn't capture the Lord. There's actually one particular example I'm thinking of. There's several examples of when devotee can actually conquer and capture the Lord. Does anybody have any examples that they would like to share? Jonathan.
when Mother Yashoda bound him.
Yes, that's the classic example. Krishna, as a little baby, is being bound by Mother Yashoda. He's allowing himself to be bound because actually nobody can conquer him. Nobody can put even an arm around him. So to tie him up, nobody can do that. But because of Mother Yashoda's love, he's allowing her to do that. On that topic, actually, if you could pull up that lecture, I don't know if you have that. And it's go up a little bit, and then where the speaker is, just keep scrolling up to the top, all the way to the top, and then maybe 3 minutes and 30 seconds from the end. You go back and just.
Krishna cannot be conquered by anyone, by the demons, but he can be conquered by people. Just like Jasadama, he has conquered. The whole world is trembled by Krishna's praise, but Krishna is trembling before Jasadama on the stick. So he wants to be conquered. Because everyone is praying, my dear, no, oh, you are so great. Everyone prays that. But no one shows his stick. But he wants, because that is also enjoyment. So sometimes he is disappointed and nobody wants him to show his stick. Therefore, he finds out there's such a devotee who can show his stick. Krishna is so kind. Krishna is so kind. So you can become mother of Krishna, you can become father of Krishna. What is to become one with Krishna? You become father of Krishna.
You can pause it there, Nate.
The Mahavadis, they want to march into the Supreme. But we want to become father of Krishna.
So that was a clip of Prabhupada explaining how Krishna becomes conquered by Mother Yashoda. And he actually enjoys it. He wants to be conquered. He wants to be controlled by his devotees. Even though he's a supreme controller, he doesn't have the desire to control. He wants to be subordinate. And that's where he finds his enjoyment. So, like you were saying, he wants somebody to show him the stick, which means like he wants to take a subordinate position. And so when there's somebody like a devotee like Mother Yashoda who has that love, he's so happy. He's happy to be captured by them. He says, here you go, this is me, please take me, please bind me. So that is a very special example. Is there any other examples that you guys can think of? Yes, Anthony.
When Prahlad was sitting on Rashima Dev's lap and he's like, oh, I can sit on your lap and I feel protective, but you can't. So then his next birth, he took, I forget the form, but he took a subordinate position so he could feel what it was like to be like Prahlad and be protected by somebody.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
He mentioned like Prahlad Maharaj, but also Dhruva in the story when Dhruva wanted to sit on the throne of his dad. But yeah, just clarifying. Just that he was saying. Tulsi.
Gopi says that when the older gopis, they tell Krishna to dance, and then he basically just dances like a little toy monkey.
Yeah. So the gopis are one of the highest examples. And I was reading this. I found this. I wanted to read it. Krishna says, my dear gopis, the service which you have rendered, I could not repay you. You have conquered me. There is no possibility of me repaying you for your service. says, "The love you have for me, I do not have for you. You better be satisfied with just your service." So this is Prabhupada actually saying that how Krishna is actually conquered by the love of the gopis. So in that love, he offers himself and he says, "I don't have the love you have for me, and so I'm completely captured by your love. But all I have to offer is my service to you." And sometimes he also says, "All I have to offer is myself, and that's all I have. I can't offer anything else." So Krishna, being captivated by that love, just offers more service and himself to his devotees. Okay. Radhika Prabhu.
I think also of in Dwaraka with his 16,108 queens. And it says that even though he's self-sufficient and has no need of anything or anyone to be satisfied, at the same time, and he's independent, at the same time, he acts like a henpecked husband for them. And, has a honey-do list. Yes, dear. And he's, basically treating them like a henpecked husband.
Yeah, he becomes completely controlled by them. I specifically think of Satyabhama and how Krishna is completely controlled. It's very sweet. Okay. So I wanted to say that through all these examples, we see that Krishna is being captured by his devotees. And the reason he's being captured is because of their love for him. It's not any other way that we can capture the Lord. Sometimes they say, "Oh, you should do yoga to attain the supreme," or you can do austerity. But here's this verse that says, "It's neither through Ashtanga yoga, nor through impersonal monism, nor analytical study, nor through study of the Vedas, nor through austerities, charity, or acceptance of sannyas can one satisfy me, as much as one can satisfy me by devotional service unto me." Also said, being pleased by devotional activities, the Lord reveals himself to the devotee. So the only way actually to capture the Lord is through devotional service. And that love completely captures Krishna's heart. But the interesting thing is the devotee is not trying to capture the Lord. He's not trying to put his arms around him and be like, "Okay, I've got Krishna, I've got the Supreme Lord on my side." Devotee is actually conquered by the Lord. And so Krishna becomes conquered by that love. If somebody's trying to conquer him, he doesn't become conquered. But when a devotee feels, "Oh, I don't have Krishna, but I just want to love him and serve him," that's when he becomes conquered by their love. Actually, it's like a devotee's humility that a devotee never feels, "Oh, I have Krishna, he's under my control." Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Sikshastakam prayers, we sometimes read, he's always hankering for Krishna, but he's also hankering for the holy names, which is the same as Krishna. He's saying, "When will I have taste for the holy name?" So he's always hankering for that. I was thinking, even in the example of Krishna with the gopis, Krishna is dancing with the gopis, but when they feel like in the middle, "Oh, I have Krishna, Krishna is just with me," Krishna leaves. So when we feel like, "Oh, we have captured Krishna, Krishna is mine," when there's some sort of pride with that, then Krishna is not with us. But when a devotee doesn't try to capture him, just tries to just surrender and serve and love him, that love conquers him. Yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions thus far? Anthony and then Radhika.
Well, I was just thinking of how in the Adi Leela, when it's describing the love between the rasa between Krishna and the gopis, especially Radharani, there's a statement in there that the Lord says, "When my beloved chastises me in a sulky mood, this steals my mind away from the flowery words of the Vedas." Or when one of the cowherd boys jumps on his shoulders and says, what kind of a big man are you? I'm greater than you are. And that this pleases the Lord more than, awe and reverence.
That's so sweet. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Thank you for class. Yeah, this Krishna fellow seems pretty magnificent. So he, from what I understand, like he's so profound that he can't even understand himself, and once he begins to, he expands again. So that's like us with our service. Once we're in the service and we're like, well, I'm working to get the shiny trinket, it takes you out of the mode of service. And even with fighters, when a fighter's winning, he's like, oh, I got this guy on the ropes. I think he starts to become lax, and that's when he can get hit again. So you have to constantly be on this offensive of serving and devotional, because once you think that you're ahead, you're automatically behind. It just, it's definitely a mood that you can create through service. And it's just like, oh, I'm humbly serving the Lord because I like to serve him. Anything outside of that, you're clicked out of it. It's like you're doing a magic trick and they're like, oh, that guy's doing magic. But if you overanalyze it and you see that he's hiding it behind itself, it's not magical anymore. So it is like putting yourself in a trance almost and becoming just captivated by him and his qualities and other devotees. So even him, like, he couldn't capture himself, so he had to take form in the form of devotees to be captured. It's a trip, like, oh, that's very, very clever, you know? And then even, it's magnificent.
Thank you. Stephen, and then
This is going back to the pastime we just read, but I think it reminds me when the demigods and all of the onlookers in Brahma to the fight between Varaha and Hiranyaksha, they're getting anxious, like, oh my gosh, is the universe going to end? Is he going to lose? He just dropped his mace, like, what's going to happen? Brahma's like, stop playing with him, like, stop toying with him, just like get it over with, like, we're so terrified of him. It reminds me of like if you're like a little kid or if you're an adult, if you're someone who's afraid of like a kind of bug or like small animals, and like you call like someone else, like your father or someone, to like get the bug, and then they like hold it in front of your face, they like pick it up or something. It's kind of like that. They're just like the problem is like gone because the superior figure who's capable of solving it is there, but there's still some anxiety that it's like happening. I don't know. I think that's a nice comparison.
thanks so much. Thank you. Okay.
I had a question that we had a lot of examples where Krishna is more happy when he's controlled and then by awe and reverence. So how do we understand that from our position? Because we're taught how to like in the beginning stage to treat him with awe and reverence. Like how do we understand that that's what Krishna wants actually, like to be under the control, but we have to treat him with awe and reverence as if he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
I can share my thoughts, and then if anybody has, can also add. It's true at the stage that we're at, we have some awe and reverence for Krishna. We cannot just go and chastise, our deities, or go and chastise Krishna. But we should know that that's the goal. Not the goal is to chastise, but the goal is love. The goal is to actually like let go of that awe and reverence, but to just love freely. So at this stage, we can just keep that in mind. Like eventually, with time, with our practice, maybe that stage will come where we feel more affection and love for Krishna. That will go away. But it's just for awareness. That's what I understand. But maybe somebody else has some other thoughts on that. Who would like to? Yes, please ask. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think there's a balance there where we also recognize, so we're treating him with awe and reverence, or more particularly with humility and dependence. but also recognizing that he's our best friend. It's a necessary component. So it's not pure awe and reverence, it's more or less dependence, but also seeing that, he cares about us like the best of friends, beyond what we can imagine in friendship.
Just what you were saying reminded me, like, just gave me this thought that when we're trying to like get to know someone, like let's say a partner in this material world, initially we have that awe and reverence. We're trying to show our best side to them, but we know that the goal is ultimately we want to be in a space where we don't have that like boundary between us. But initially, because we're just getting to know them, we haven't known them fully, so there is some awe and reverence. Maybe that is our beginning stage with Krishna. We are still getting to know him. We haven't really appreciated. We're still like don't know like what a wonderful qualities he has. So we really haven't gotten into a relationship with him yet. So the awe and reverence stage is there, but eventually the goal is to realize our relationship with him, and then it automatically goes. And it's not that we artificially try to like apply that right now.
I was also thinking that you said, the goal, like how can we understand that the goal is that Krishna likes to be chastised or that he likes to be conquered? But like I was saying, that none of these devotees have that desire to like conquer Krishna or to chastise him. It's just something that flows naturally because of their love for him. They actually want to serve him. And so whatever pleases Krishna, they are inspired to do that. That's just what I was also thinking. I think we might have to.
It's on the same line with what Nitai was saying of like, even when you approach a guru, you might be like taken back by his just presence in the room, and you have this awe and reverence, but you can't be sitting at his feet being like, oh, it's awesome, like I'm blown away by everything you do. It's not very personal, and you can't get to know somebody on a personal level if you just like if you're just so captivated all the time. You might miss subtle nuances of their personality. But ultimately, if you like in that awe and reverence, like, oh, you're helping everybody. I love that. I want to be more like you. And then you become into union in a relationship. Like I also feel at my best when I'm displaying the qualities of this person that is awe and reverence. And I think through studying under somebody and getting to know them personally, you learn how they engage the world. You too can engage it in the same way, and then you develop awe and reverence comes respect. Like I respect Nrsimha Dev because he can rip me to pieces, and I love him because he doesn't. So there's just like the interplay of these emotions. Just know when to respect somebody, when they need love and reverence, when they need to be chastised. It's remaining formless and adaptable, and in that moment, just displaying whatever qualities that you have in your arsenal.
I think we should end class, but I'll just add one point here. This verse is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's been translated into English. And we heard about how only devotees can capture Krishna, where Krishna is captured by the devotees. And Krishna offers himself when we want to serve him, when we love him. And he says, here you go, this is me, please accept me. I just found that this is beautiful because this talks about the loving exchange between the devotee and Krishna. Because love or bhakti makes Krishna dance, makes the devotee dance, it dances itself, and the three dance together. So, not necessarily about trying to capture Krishna, but trying to love him. And when we try to love and serve him, it just becomes us. Maybe I think that your last point.
Real briefly, so in a situation of awe and reverence, say like with a king, you would never think of pouring the depth of your heart out to someone like that. But with Krishna, we can. So even though we approach him with humility and reverence, we can also open up our deepest heart to Him, pour out everything, basically.
Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Mahapashade Govinde Nam